The pool gate slammed shut with a clang that echoed like a gunshot through the quiet cul-de-sac. Karen's scream followed, shrill enough to make the neighborhood dogs howl. I stood there, key in hand, staring at the woman who just declared war over my own backyard. This wasn't just about a pool party, it was about power, pride, and a woman who thought she could bully her way into my life. My name's Jake, and I never thought I'd be the villain in a suburban soap opera, but here we were, toe-to-toe, with Karen dialing 911 like I'd stolen her crown jewels. It started innocently enough. I'd moved into Willow Creek 6 months ago, a quiet neighborhood where the biggest drama was whose lawnmower was loudest. My house came with a Paola sparkling, sapphire oasis that was my pride and joy. I'd spent countless evenings cleaning it, balancing chemicals, and dreaming of quiet summer nights floating under the stars. But Karen, my next-door neighbor and self-appointed queen of the HOA, had other plans. She'd been eyeing my pool since the day I moved in, dropping hints about community spirit and shared resources. I brushed it off, thinking she was just overly friendly. Big mistake. Last week, Karen knocked on my door, her smile as fake as her tan. "Jake, darling," she cooed, clutching a clipboard like it was a scepter, "I'm hosting a little get-together for the HOA board. You know, to impress the new members. Your pool would be perfect for it." Her tone wasn't a skink, it was demanding. I politely declined, citing maintenance costs and liability. Her smile froze, and I swear I saw her eye twitch. "It's just one afternoon," she pressed, voice tight. "The neighborhood expects it." I held firm, shutting the door with a sinking feeling I'd just poked a hornet's nest. By Friday, the hornet's nest had exploded. I came home from work to find Karen's car parked in my driveway, her friends unloading coolers and inflatable flamingos onto my lawn. A banner reading "Willow Creek Summer Bash" was strung across my fence. My blood boiled. I stormed out, demanding answers. Karen, in a neon pink sundress, waved me off like I was the help. "Jake, relax. It's for the community. You'll thank me later." Her friends nodded, sipping wine coolers, oblivious to the fact they were trespassing. I told her to leave. She laughed. That's when I locked the pool gate and told her the party was over. You'd think I'd burned her house down. Karen's face turned scarlet, her voice hitting decibels I didn't know existed. "You can't do this. This is a community pool," she shrieked, despite the deed clearly stating it was mine. Her friends whispered nervously, but no one dared cross her. I stood my ground, arms crossed, trying to stay calm while she ranted about HOA rules and neighborly duties. Then she pulled out her phone, dialed 911, and wailed, "There's a man threatening me in my own neighborhood." I almost laughed at the absurdity, but the stakes were rising, and I wasn't sure how far she'd take this. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the yard. My pool glimmered behind the locked gate, a silent witness to the madness. Karen's friends hovered like a Greek chorus, some filming on their phones, others muttering about calling the HOA president. I could feel the weight of their judgment, but I wasn't backing down. This was my home, my sanctuary, and I'd be damned if I let Karen turn it into her personal stage. "Karen," I said, voice low but firm, "this is my property. You don't get to decide what happens here." Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I saw something dangerous, not just entitlement, but desperation. This wasn't just about a pool party. It was about her need to control, to be seen as the queen bee. The police arrived 10 minutes later, 2 officers stepping out of a cruiser with weary expressions. Karen launched into her performance, tears and all, claiming I'd threatened her safety and ruined a community event. I explained my side, showing them the deed and pointing out the trespassing signs she'd ignored. The officers, clearly used to HOA drama, listened patiently. One of them, Officer Daniels, raised an eyebrow at Karen's theatrics. "Ma'am, if it's his property, he can close the pool," he said. Karen sputtered, insisting the HOA had unwritten rules. The officers weren't buying it. They told her to clear out her guests and warned her about false emergency calls. For a moment, I thought it was over. But Karen wasn't done. As her friends packed up, she cornered me by the gate, her voice a venomous whisper. "You think you've won, Jake? This neighborhood runs on my rules. You'll regret this." Her words sent a chill down my spine, not because I feared her, but because I saw the lengths she'd go to. This was no longer about a pool. It was personal. I watched her storm off, her friends trailing behind like defeated soldiers, and I wondered what I'd unleashed. That night, I couldn't sleep. The pool, once my refuge, felt like a battleground. I kept replaying Karen's words, wondering what she meant by regret. I'd heard stories about HOA petty fines, legal battles, even sabotage, but I never thought I'd be in the crosshairs. The next morning, I found my mailbox stuffed with anonymous letters, all accusing me of being unneighborly and selfish. One even suggested I sell my house and leave. Karen's influence was clear, but I wasn't sure how deep it ran. By Monday, the neighborhood was split. Some neighbors stopped by to thank me for standing up to Karen's bullying. Others gave me cold stares or left passive-aggressive notes about community spirit. The HOA meeting that week was a circus. Karen, dressed like she was auditioning for a reality show, proposed a new rule requiring homeowners to share private amenities for community events. The room erupted, half cheering her on, half calling it absurd. I spoke up, laying out the facts: my pool, my rules, my liability. A few nodded, but Karen's allies shot daggers with their eyes. The vote was tabled, but the tension lingered like smoke. Then came the sabotage. I woke up one morning to find my pool cloudy, the water reeking of bleach. Someone had dumped chemicals into it overnight. My security camera caught a blurry figure in a hoodie, but no clear face. I reported it to the police, who took a statement but said there wasn't enough evidence to pin it on anyone. Karen, of course, was conveniently out of town that weekend, her alibi airtight. I spent hundreds cleaning the pool, my anger simmering. This wasn't just petty, it was calculated. I started digging into Karen's past. Turns out, she wasn't just the HOA queen, she was a master manipulator. Neighbors whispered about her past stunts: finding a family for their kid's lemonade stand, harassing a widow over her garden gnomes, even getting a dog banned for excessive barking. She thrived on control, and I'd challenged her throne. But the more I learned, the more I realized this wasn't just about me. Karen's need for power stemmed from something deeper: loneliness, insecurity, maybe even a life unraveling behind her perfect facade. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. The days after the pool sabotage felt like walking through a minefield. Every morning, I checked my cameras, half expecting to find my tires slashed or my windows smeared with paint. Karen's threat, "You'll regret this," hung over me like a storm cloud. I wasn't scared, not exactly, but I was tired. Tired of the glares from her allies, tired of the whispers at the grocery store, tired of feeling like an outsider in my own home. My pool, once a symbol of peace, was now a reminder of a war I hadn't signed up for. But I wasn't about to let Karen win. I decided to fight back, not with her tactics, but with strategy. I started attending every HOA meeting, something I'd avoided like the plague. The room was always a mix of Karen's loyalists, neutral neighbors, and a few rebels who'd had enough of her reign. I brought evidence: photos of the sabotaged pool, copies of my deed, even a lawyer's letter outlining my rights. Karen, always draped in some garish outfit, would counter with her usual mix of charm and venom, painting me as the selfish newcomer who didn't understand community. But I noticed cracks in her armor. Some neighbors rolled their eyes when she spoke, and others started whispering their own stories of her overreach. One ally emerged unexpectedly: Mrs. Carter, a retired librarian who lived across the street. She was quiet, unassuming, but sharp as a tack. Over coffee one morning, she told me about Karen's history. "She's been running this neighborhood like her personal fiefdom for years," Mrs. Carter said, her voice low. Lost her husband a decade ago, no kids, no real friends. The HOA's all she has. I nodded, piecing together the puzzle. Karen's need for control wasn't just ego, it was a lifeline. But understanding her didn't mean forgiving her. Not after the bleach, the letters, the lies. I rallied a small group of neighbors who'd been burned by Karen's antics. There was Tom, a mechanic whose truck was nearly towed over a parking violation Karen fabricated, and Lisa, a single mom fined for her kid's basketball hoop. We called ourselves the Pool Rebels, half joking but deadly serious. Our plan was simple: expose Karen's abuses at the next HOA election and vote her out as president. It was a long shot. Her loyalists were fierce, but we had momentum. I printed flyers outlining her oversteps, keeping them anonymous to avoid her wrath. They spread like wildfire, tucked under windshields and slipped into mailboxes. Karen didn't take it lying down. The day after the flyers appeared, my front yard was egged. No proof it was her, of course, but the timing wasn't subtle. Then came the HOA citations. My fence was non-compliant, my mailbox too faded, my grass too tall. Each fine was small, but they added up, designed to bleed me dry. I paid them, gritting my teeth, knowing she was watching. But I also kept records, building a case. If she wanted a war, I'd give her onion paper, in public, where her charm couldn't save her. The turning point came at the August HOA meeting, a sweltering night in the community center. The room was packed, tension thick as the summer heat. Karen strutted in, all smiles, proposing a new pool access rule that would force homeowners to share private amenities for HOA events. It was a direct shot at me, and everyone knew it. I stood up, heart pounding, and laid out my case: the sabotage, the harassment, the abuse of power. I showed photos of my ruined pool, read excerpts from her petty citations, and quoted neighbors who'd been bullied into silence. The room went quiet, then erupted in murmurs. Karen's face was a mask of fury, but she didn't interrupt, not yet. Then Mrs. Carter stood, her voice steady but fierce. Karen's been running this HOA like a dictator, she said. She fines us for living our lives, twists rules to suit her whims. Jake's not the problem, she is. Tom and Lisa chimed in, sharing their stories. Others followed, a dam breaking. Karen tried to regain control, banging her gavel, but the crowd wasn't hers anymore. The vote to table her rule passed overwhelmingly. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. She wasn't untouchable. But victory came at a cost. The next morning, I found my pool drain, thousands of gallons gone, the liner cracked from the sudden exposure. The damage was catastrophic, easily 10 grand to fix. My cameras caught nothing, the culprit had known exactly where to stand. I called the police, but without evidence, they could only take a report. I knew it was Karen, or someone she'd roped into her vendetta. My anger boiled over, but so did my resolve. This wasn't just about a pool Anna Marie, it was about justice. I poured everything into the HOA election. We campaigned hard, knocking on doors, sharing stories, promising a fairer neighborhood. Karen fought back, spreading rumors I was anti-community and violent, twisting her 911 call into a tale of my rage. Some believed her, but others saw through the lies. The night of the election, the community center was a battlefield of glares and whispers. When the votes were counted, Mrs. Carter won HOA president by a slim margin. Karen's reign was over. The room cheered, but her icy stare promised this wasn't the end. I thought I'd feel triumphant, but the victory was hollow. My pool was still ruined, my savings drained from repairs and fines. And Karen didn't slink away quietly. She started a smear campaign on the neighborhood's social media, calling me a bully who'd destroyed the community spirit. Her posts got likes from her loyalists, but others pushed back, sharing their own Karen horror stories. The neighborhood was fracturing, and I was at the center of it. I started to wonder if standing up to her had been worth it. Then came the final blow. One night, I got a call from Officer Daniels, the cop from the 911 fiasco. "Jake, we got a tip about the pool sabotage," he said. "Anonymous, but credible. Meet me tomorrow." My heart raced. Could this be the proof I needed? The next day, Daniels showed me grainy footage from a neighbor's camera, one I hadn't known about. It showed a figure in a hoodie dumping bleach into my pool, then another clip of the same figure draining it weeks later. The hoodie slipped in one frame, revealing a glimpse of Karen's distinctive blonde highlights. It wasn't ironclad, but it was enough for a warrant. The police confronted Karen, and she crumbled. Not fully. She denied everything, claiming the footage was doctored, but the evidence was enough to charge her with vandalism. The neighborhood buzzed with the news. Some called her a martyr, others a menace. At her hearing, she played the victim, tears flowing, but the judge wasn't swayed. She got community service and a fine, a slap on the wrist, but her reputation was shattered. She stopped coming to HOA meetings, her house went quiet, and rumors swirled she might move. I should have felt vindicated, but I didn't. Fixing the pool drained my savings, and the neighborhood was still divided. I'd won the battle, but the war had left scars. One evening, as I sat by my repaired pool, Mrs. Carter stopped by. "You did the right thing, Jake," she said. "But doing the right thing doesn't always feel good." She was right. Karen's desperation had cost us both her power, me, my peace. The pool sparkled under the stars, but it felt empty, a reminder of a fight no one truly won. The pool's surface reflected the stars, but their beauty couldn't erase the bitter taste in my mouth. Karen's vandalism charge had stripped her of her HOA crown, but the neighborhood was still a fractured mess. Some neighbors hailed me as a hero for standing up to her, others saw me as the spark that ignited chaos. My victory over Karen felt like a Pyrrhic one. My savings were gone, my pool was a constant reminder of the fight, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd lost something intangible. Peace, maybe. Or the naive hope that a home could just be a home. Weeks after the hearing, Karen's house went up for sale. The "for sale" sign was a quiet admission of defeat, but it didn't bring the closure I'd expected. I'd see her occasionally, watering her roses or hurrying to her car, head down, avoiding eye contact. The neighborhood gossip mill churned, her friends had abandoned her, her social media rants had dried up, and she was moving to a condo across town. Part of me wanted to gloat brought this on herself, but another part saw a woman unmoored, her identity tied to a power she no longer held. It was hard to hate someone who looked so broken. I tried to move on. The pool rebels, as we jokingly called ourselves, became the new backbone of the HOA. Mrs. Carter, now president, pushed for transparency, publishing budgets, simplifying rules, even hosting a barbecue that wasn't a power play. My pool stayed mine, no community access nonsense. But every time I swam, I'd catch myself glancing at the gate, half expecting Karen to storm through with a new scheme. The scars of our feud ran deep, not just in me but in the neighborhood. Trust was fragile, and I wondered if it would ever heal. Then came the letter. It arrived on a crisp October morning, slipped into my mailbox with no return address. The handwriting was neat, almost delicate, but the words hit like a punch. "Jake, I'm sorry. I went too far. I was scared of losing everything." I read it a dozen times, searching for a catch, but it felt raw, real. Karen, apologizing. It didn't erase the damage, financial, emotional, communal, but it shifted something in me. I'd seen her as a monster, but maybe she was just human, clinging to control in a life that felt out of her grasp. I showed the letter to Mrs. Carter over coffee. She sighed, stirring her mug. "Karen's not evil, Jake. She's lonely. The HOA was her stage, her way of mattering. You took that away, and I don't blame you, but it broke her." Her words stung. I'd fought for what was right, but had I pushed too hard? Could I have de-escalated, found a middle ground? The thought gnawed at me. I'd won, But at what cost? I decided to confront her not with anger, but with questions. I knocked on Karen's door, the letter in my pocket. She answered, looking smaller than I remembered, her eyes wary. "Jake," she said, voice flat. "What do you want?" I held up the letter. "This. I need to know why." For a moment, I thought she'd slam the door, but she stepped aside, letting me in. Her house was half-packed, boxes stacked like walls. We sat at her kitchen table, the silence heavy. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said finally, staring at her hands. "The pool, the party, it was about showing I still mattered. After my husband died, the HOA was all I had. People listened to me. Respected me." Her voice cracked. "When you said no, it felt like you were saying I was nothing." I listened, stunned. Karen, the tyrant, was spilling her soul. She admitted to the bleach, the draining, the anonymous letters, acts of desperation, not malice. "I called 911 because I panicked," she said. "I thought if I could scare you, you'd back down. I wanted to be angry, but all I felt was pity. You didn't just scare me, Karen. You hurt me. The neighborhood. Yourself." She nodded, tears falling. "I know. I'm leaving because I can't face it. I'm not strong enough." For the first time, I saw her not as the HOA queen, but as a woman who'd built her world on sand, and it had collapsed. I left her house with no promises of forgiveness, but the letter stayed in my pocket, a weight I couldn't ignore. The neighborhood slowly healed. Mrs. Carter's barbecue drew a crowd, and laughter replaced whispers. My pool became a gathering spot not for HOA power plays, but for kids splashing and neighbors sharing beers. But the healing wasn't complete. Some of Karen's old allies still shot me cold looks, and I'd catch myself wondering if I'd been too harsh, too quick to fight fire with fire. The final twist came in November. I got a package from Karen's new address, no note, just a check for $5,000, half the cost of the pool repairs. It wasn't enough to fix everything, but it was something. I didn't cash it right away. Part of me wanted to send it back, to cut all ties. But Mrs. Carter convinced me to keep it. "It's her way of making amends," she said. "Let her have that." I deposited the check, but it didn't feel like closure. It felt like a question mark. By spring, Willow Creek was different. The HOA was quieter, fairer. My pool was mine again, a place of peace, not war. But every so often, I'd think of Karen alone in her condo, her kingdom gone. I'd won the battle, but the war had cost us both. Her desperation had destroyed her, and my stubbornness had drained me. The neighborhood was healing, but it would never be the same. Neither would I. The last time I saw Karen was at a grocery store, months later. She was in the checkout line, her cart half empty, her face tired. I almost approached her, but what was there to say? We'd both paid too much for a fight over a pool. I turned away, heading home to my quiet backyard, where the water sparkled under the sun. It was beautiful, but it felt heavy, a reminder that even victories can taste like loss. The lesson wasn't about pools or HOAs. It was about pride, power, and the fragile line between standing your ground and breaking someone else's. Karen had crossed that line, but so had I, in my own way. We were both human, both flawed, both fighting for something we thought we needed. In the end, the pool was just a mirror reflecting our mistakes, our regrets, and the bitter truth that some battles, no matter how right they seem, leave everyone drowning.